Welcome to Divisionalysis. I'm Fog. Today is part 2 of survivability and damage and the relationship between the two. Today we're going to discuss the two sides of the coin and how you can leverage the benefits, reduce the weaknesses. You'll hear the world according to me when it comes to building, and hopefully by the end of it you'll tweak your understanding, pique your interest, and you can get out there and enjoy one of the best parts of this game, which is creating some weird and wacky builds of your own that work the best for you. Let's go. So in the previous video I introduced the analogy of survival and damage being two sides of the same coin. And I introduced some principles in regards to either increasing damage or increasing survivability. We spoke about optimizing, you build your weapon, your skills for damage, and optimizing for survival. I think everybody gets that. Accuracy and range work again on two sides of the coin. So I think most people get that if you're closer to an enemy, the more accurate they are. And therefore, the more damage they do, the more danger that you're in. And I asked the question last time, who was in more danger? Which version of me was in more danger? And as it turns out, it's probably going to be, I'm in more danger from the red assault hyena than I am from the elite heavy. Simply because outside of 15 meters, the elite heavy is like a stormtrooper and can barely hit anything. So when it comes to our own, or increasing our own damage, I've shown these before. So we have both optimal range, so the further away from a target you are, the less damage that you do. And I've also shown how accuracy over distance degrades as well. A lot of people complained about my graphs, but given my level of IT expertise, I think we're lucky that we get graphs in the first place, so you're going to have to live with it for the moment. But what I've done is I've combined both of those two, and what I've got here is weapons efficiency over distance. So in each one of these ranges, the average for both optimal range data and also the accuracy data has been averaged over that 10-meter window. And then that's been converted into a degradation factor, essentially. Every single weapon between 0 and 15 meters operates at 100% efficiency, and the same is true between 16 to 25 meters, except for the chameleon. So essentially, out to 25 meters, every weapon is capable of being 100% accurate and delivering 100% of its damage potential. But when you get out to 36 meters to 45, and then 46 to 55 meters, there is a considerable drop in weapon efficiency. So the best performing weapons out at range are the M4, the Honey Badger, and the F2000. And they're for different reasons. The F2000, out at 46 to 55 meters, its lack of accuracy starts to take a toll, but its excellent optimal range makes up for that, making it actually one of the most effective weapons out at that range. And then you have the Honey Badger and the M4, whose accuracy plays a massive part in being a very effective out to that range. The carbine's left to right kick lets it down a little bit as far as stability is concerned, out at that distance. But inside of 45 meters, there's virtually no difference between the F2000, the CTAR, the Honey Badger, carbine, M4, and even the SIG. All of those weapons will perform to almost 100% of their potential inside that distance. All that's important here is to know what the weaknesses are of your weapon, and then either build or to play to the strengths and avoid the weaknesses of that weapon. My early research indicates that you're looking at approximately a 50% increase in the amount of damage that you're going to take for every 10 meters that you are closer to an enemy. And so once you know that information, you understand that probably the best strategy is going to be operating at a distance that works just inside the optimal range of the weapon, which puts you at the maximum distance away from the enemy while still dealing the maximum amount of damage. And we're going to take that principle and run with it. We're going to mash the rest of the two sides of the coin together, and we're going to start exploring how different builds provide different benefits, and we can reduce their weaknesses and maximize their potential. So we're going to analyze some strengths and weaknesses. Some of them will be obvious and some of them will be not so obvious. So we're going to start with this build, which I'm going to call Alpha. It's got glass cannon, vigilance, fast hands, maximized for damage. And then we're going to go with my test build, which I put together with random pieces from my stash to produce consistent damage numbers. So I removed all the damage talents. So it's got Vanguard instead of glass cannon, it's got clutch instead of vigilance, and it's got preservation on the weapon instead of fast hands. Significantly less damage. It does have a little bit more survivability. So here we have Alpha. Quickly dispatching enemies as it's designed to do. And now there's an enemy up the top, but can't cross ground because I was afraid that I was going to take damage, so happy to stay in cover, wait for the enemy to become visible and destroy it with the superior amount of damage that it does. 29 seconds in total to clear that wave. Now we've got Sigma. Able to only kill 2 as opposed to 3 in that first second of surprise. Two enemies up top. Not so afraid of taking damage, so it's able to sustain damage for a bit longer. I wasn't sure if the chain had broken, but I wasn't afraid to cross some ground to get a more accurate or deal more accurate damage. And 45 seconds, so 16 seconds slower when everything goes right. Let's see what happens when things don't go so well. Alpha takes a 1 bullet, which drops it down to no health. Ooh, incoming grenade. Ooh, nasty. Got to use a medkit in order to return to doing damage. Pop out. Ooh, that was unfortunate. Now I'm down on the ground. It's going to be a good 10 seconds before I get back up again. Back to half health. Took another shot before I deployed the shield. 37 seconds. Now let's see what the same issues present for Sigma. Takes a grenade and a shot from the turret. Back out, doing damage, back to half health. Vanguard allows it to cross a bit of ground, get a bit more accurate. Ends up clearing in 34 seconds. Then Alpha says, well, I'll just make up for my weakness by playing smarter. I'll use angles, I'll clear from the outside in, and I'll reduce damage that way. But even when using angles, there's still an incidental amount of damage that comes in, and it's enough to drop health down, and at the same time it deactivates vigilance, reducing the build's efficiency. But enough damage to be able to take that last one, and it manages to clear in 23 seconds now. And then Alpha again says, I'm going to solve all my problems by using a shield. I can now absorb that incidental damage because I've made up for that weakness by adding more survivability to my build. Shield damage now doesn't deactivate vigilance, and I'm able to damage more efficient now. I can clear away with 21 seconds and still have full health at the end. Job done. Let's see you compete with that, Sigma. Sigma, even though it's able to sustain damage even without a shield. Close and distance. 24 seconds. And the truth is that the Sigma build is never going to be able to outdo the Alpha build. If the Sigma build continues to think that it's an Alpha build. Let's think about it in terms of the phases of the fight. You have that initial surprise where there's no fire coming in, and the idea is to do the maximum amount of damage that you possibly can before fire starts coming back. The Alpha build is going to do more damage during that period of time. It's that simple. Enemies are now taking cover. They're making themselves smaller by being behind cover. They're limiting the amount of damage that you can do on them. And they're also in cover, which generally means that your damage is less effective because you've got damage to out of cover on your build. 3, the next phase is where maximum danger occurs. There's the most number of enemies in the wave doing damage or attempting to do damage on you, and the Alpha build has solved its problem of maximum danger. It's now sacrificed a very tiny amount of damage in order to have a shield, and it's just playing smarter. So it's solved its problems of the maximum danger period. And after that phase, it's reducing the numbers, and the Alpha build is always going to be quicker at reducing numbers because it's got more damage. But let's think about the Sigma build and its differences to the Alpha build. Stop trying to play like an Alpha build and see what we can do in applying the benefits of the Alpha build to the principles of damage and survival. So what does the Sigma build bring to the fight? So instead of glass cannon, we're running Vanguard. What does Vanguard give us? It gives us a literally indestructible shield for 5 seconds. And I'm able to proc that every 25 seconds. It also has clutch. And because we have 6 red cores, we're able to replenish up to 100% of our armor if we're below 15%. So what does that look like? I'll just drop the level of that guy there, reduce my health down to 0, or my armor down to 0, kill that guy, proc clutch, and then you can see that in the space of 2 magazines, I'm now back to about 90% armor. So I've regenerated practically 650 plus K of armor in the space of 5 seconds. Now, if I change back to the weapon that I would normally have, which is preservation, and now I add preservation on top of clutch, I now have a crazy amount of healing that's occurring just by hitting targets. Now back to full health and continuing to heal post that, so I continue to be able to take damage. So with all that survivability, the Sigma build has the ability to cross ground that the Alpha build doesn't without an increased level of danger. So the Sigma build can get up close and personal with the enemy, improving the accuracy and increasing its damage that way. It can also increase its accuracy and efficiency by then being close enough where shooting for the head becomes a viable and efficient option of delivering damage. Limiting damage and sustaining damage during that maximum damage period, it has a shield that is literally invulnerable for 5 seconds of the fight. So it can cover ground, then deploy a shield that is literally invulnerable during that maximum damage period, and during that maximum damage period, sustain damage more accurately during that period. And it's able to damage more efficiently because now it can shoot for headshots. And not only that, it's now pushing the enemy, driving them out of cover, making the damage even more efficient again. Now let's see what happens when you use those advantages and leverage them towards the principles. So the Sigma build has actually now cleared that wave 1 second faster than what the Alpha build did. Now, I'm in no way saying that my test build is a good build, but the point of this exercise, as unscientific as it is that you have to understand what different talents, gear pieces, skills bring to the fight, and then leverage them against the phases of the fight and the principles of what we're trying to do or what you're trying to achieve. And just because something is a damage talent doesn't mean that it can't provide survivability, and vice versa. Something that provides survivability can also bring damage. So build beta comes into the picture, and Explosive says, you know what's better than dealing damage with a weapon to one enemy? Is dealing massive damage to multiple enemies at once. I can do it all from cover, which means that glass cannon actually makes sense for me. And I can clear this wave in 19 seconds. Then build Delta. A hybrid comes along and goes, you know what's better than dealing damage with skills only is doing damage with skills and a weapon. And I can clear in 16 seconds. Then build Echo Negotiators comes along and says, well, I can deal maximum damage to multiple enemies all at once. I can even damage enemies in cover by shooting their mates. And I can clear in 15 seconds. And then build Echo comes along and says, hold my beer, because you know what's better than dealing damage with a weapon or explosions? Is dealing damage with a weapon and explosions at the same time. And I can clear it in 14 seconds. No one's going to beat that. Let's go back to the alpha build, have a bit of a rethink, and see if there's some improvements that we can make. Now in the first phase of the fight, that's where glass cannon shines. You have instant access to all of that damage. You don't have to stack it, you don't have to charge it. It's very, very good at dropping enemies fast. But when the enemies take cover, that's when the other builds start to take an advantage. They can deal damage to enemies in cover. And during that maximum danger period, it hasn't quite solved all of its problems with a shield. Maybe there's something that we can do to reduce the incoming fire. And when it gets to reducing the numbers, it's very good at reducing those numbers as quickly as possible. So what can we do to get enemies out of cover, or to stop them to getting from cover, and stop them from producing incoming damage? 14 seconds. Did we just produce a new meta? No, we've pretty much just created a Hunter's Fury build, but one that can do damage at range. So maybe it is better. I don't know, but we've applied the principles. We understood how the fight was going to evolve. We maximised the advantage of the build, and we reduced its weaknesses, and we played accordingly. So now that they aren't doing damage, maybe we don't need the shield. We'll go back, we'll retweak, we'll rethink, but we understand what's going on, and we can do what I believe is one of the most fun things in this game, and that is theorycraft the shit out of some new builds. If you like, then like. If you want to see more, subscribe, but I'll see you in the next one. Fog out.